You're watching Around the World, our top global stories. It's been more than 100 hours since the earthquakes ripped through Turkey and Syria. Even as rescue operations continue for the fifth day in freezing conditions, the death toll has now passed the 21,000 mark, exceeding the initial projections of 20,000 by the World Health Organization. The final tally will be even bigger than 21,000. Turkey recorded almost 650 aftershocks, making rescue efforts more difficult as teams combed through weak buildings and structures. Officials and medics tallied that over 17,500 people have died in Turkey and over 3,300 in Syria, bringing the confirmed toll to above 21,000. Hospital yards are filling up with bodies of quake victims. Even as people mourn the loss of their loved ones, with grieving family members seen weeping by the coffins as they vanished inside graves. Rescuers continued pulling out people, many trapped for days on end. At least 28,000 people have been evacuated from Kahramanmaraş, one of the hardest hit southern provinces of Turkey. They've been housed in tents erected inside stadiums and shattered city centers. In Syria, the United Nations' World Food Program has begun distributing food. Trucks carrying boxes of food arrived and hot meals were distributed to thousands of people. The US Treasury Department has also dropped sanctions to allow relief aid that would otherwise be prohibited to get through to Syria. Search teams from around the world have joined the efforts. 77 national and 13 international emergency medical teams have also been deployed. A camera moment that has gone viral shows a Turkish citizen kissing a female Indian army personnel amidst rescue operations. China's Blue Sky Rescue Team also arrived at the Istanbul airport, welcomed by an applause by the passengers. A black ribbon was projected on Australia's iconic Sydney Opera House as a symbol of remembrance and mourning for the earthquake victims. Teams from the United Kingdom, meanwhile, were on the ground in Turkey's Antakya, peeping inside buildings for survivors. Qatari search teams began their rescue mission as well, taking breaks only to offer prayers in the middle of the rescue operations. Countries including France, Germany, and even Greece, which has had long-term disputes with Turkey, have sent relief aid. The World Health Organization had projected that up to 23 million people overall could be affected by the earthquakes. The death toll is already over 21,000. Turkey's president has called it the biggest disaster in the last century. But in terms of the death toll, there are other earthquakes that have caused greater losses. In the last 20 years, 2 earthquakes have claimed over 2 lakh lives each. The Indian Ocean earthquake in 2004, with a magnitude of 9.1 on the Richter scale, killed nearly 2.3 lakh people across 14 countries after triggering tsunami waves up to 50 meters high. The earthquake in Haiti in 2010 also led to over 2 lakh deaths. Up next, Zelensky's tongue-in-cheek push for Ukraine's membership in the European Union, clearly showing that being a president has not completely shunned his comic side, though the comedian turned leader of a war-torn country meant serious business. In his second trip abroad since the war began, Zelensky first went to London, then Paris, and finally Brussels. Here, he received a standing ovation and also addressed the European Parliament. In his speech, Zelensky pushed the leaders of the European Union over the start of membership talks for his country.
And this year, Charles, when I say this year, I mean this year. I mean there's 2023.
Besides, Ukraine seeks new weaponry from the West to fight Russia.
Просто прагматика. Нам, щоб вижити, нам треба...
I don't have the right. I just don't have the right to go back home without results. It depends on the partners and on me personally. It is essential for me that all negotiations should end with a result. And even if it sounds cheeky now, it's not cynicism on my part. It's pragmatism. And believe me, there are no emotions anymore. We left emotions a year ago on the 24th. So there are none of them, just pragmatism. We need these weapons and this money to survive. And I'm talking about this.
Meanwhile, not all is well with the allies of the European Union. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has criticized France and Germany for not inviting her to a dinner in Paris with Ukraine's President Zelensky. Zelensky started a surprise visit to Western Europe on Wednesday with a visit to the UK first and then to France before a final summit in Brussels. And in an apparent retaliation, even as President Zelensky was meeting with the European Union leaders, Russia launched massive missile and drone attacks, striking cities and critical infrastructure facilities in the south and east of Ukraine to capture the remaining parts of Luhansk and Donetsk provinces. And here's another side to the war that's raging, far away from politics and diplomacy. Torn apart by the war in Ukraine before he was even born, 8-month-old Daniel Yushchenko is yet to meet his father, who is currently fighting the Russian army. Daniel's mother fled the country to seek safety in another European nation after Russia launched its invasion a year ago on the 24th of February.
Здоров'я моїх рідних, близьких людей.
Shifting focus to the US, where it's Super Bowl time, the finals of the American Football League, NFL, the most watched televised event in America. And this year, the finals is between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. 2 years ago, when Kansas City Chiefs were competing for a second consecutive Super Bowl victory, a group of Native Americans were protesting outside the stadium. And now, as the Kansas City Chiefs return to Super Bowl for the first time in 2 years, it's yet again gripped by Native American anger. Protesters have been demanding for the NFL team to drop its name, logo, and trademark war chant, a chopping hand gesture that mimics the Native American tomahawk. Native Americans say using iconography and words with Native connotations demeans them and encourages racist stereotypes. The community says all it wants is to attend a football game without being met with fake headgear, the tomahawk chop, hitting of the big drums, all mocking their culture. Not just with the Chiefs, but with multiple teams across different sports, these fights against tribal and cultural appropriation have been going on for decades. Teams have previously countered that the mascots were meant to show respect to the native tribes, but the protests in the year 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, compelled franchises to do some soul searching. For example, the Cleveland Indians baseball team officially changed to the Guardians in November 2021, removing Chief Wahoo, a logo caricature of an Indian American. Last year, the Washington football team was anointed as the Commanders, a move that came after 18 months of pressure to drop the name Redskins, which was seen as a racial slur. Even though the Kansas City Chiefs have made efforts to address concerns about cultural insensitivities, they always stopped short of altering their name or fan favorite chants and gestures. The Chiefs had earlier issued a ban on fans donning the tribal headdress, war paint, and clothing, but Native American organizations in Kansas City had called the changes laughable. And let's not forget, these protests are happening in a state where a quarter of the land belongs to Native Americans. Now, keeping it with the Super Bowl, where Rihanna is ready to make her hugely anticipated comeback to the stage. After 7 long years, she will be performing live at the Super Bowl halftime show, taking the stage for the first time since becoming a mother.
It feels like it could have only been now.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first got the call to do it again this year, I was like, you sure? Like I'm 3 months postpartum. Like, should I be making major decisions like this right now? Like, I might regret this. But when you become a mom, there's something that just happens where you feel like you could take on the world, you can do anything, and the Super Bowl is one of the biggest stages in the world.
9-time Grammy Award winner Rihanna also said that the main reason why she chose to perform this year was to continue representing black women everywhere.
I mean, that's a big part of why this is important for me to do this show. Representation, representing for immigrants, representing for my country, Barbados, representing for black women everywhere. I think that's really important. That's key for people to see the possibilities. And I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be doing this year.
Keeping it with the US, where it's time for the New York Fashion Week 2023. It is one of the 4 major fashion weeks globally, apart from Milan, London, and Paris. And it runs this year from the 10th to the 15th of February. This year's edition kicked off with a pre-calendar event with a show by New York Fashion Week regular American designer Christian Siriano, whose collection this year was inspired by the iconic Hollywood actress Audrey Hepburn. The runway was lined with thousands of multicolored flowers, and models sashayed down with wide-brimmed hats typical of Hepburn. To be more accurate, it was Audrey Hepburn in a rose garden at midnight. Siriano was inspired by a 1990s TV documentary series that Audrey Hepburn did with Michael York titled Gardens of the World with Audrey Hepburn. The series had Hepburn visiting gardens across England, France, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, and the US. Siriano honored that series with Japanese-influenced hats and large 3D floral embellishments. And finally, it's a movie called Air. It's about how Michael Jordan and Nike's partnership on the Air Jordan brand revolutionized the world of sports. Directed by Ben Affleck, the cast of Air includes Matt Damon, Viola Davis, Jason Bateman, Chris Tucker, and Ben Affleck himself. And Amazon is releasing it first in theaters in April and then on OTT. We leave you with this quick sneak peek. Thank you for watching.
I believe in your son. I believe he's the future. And his story is gonna make us want to fly. But a shoe is just a shoe.
Until my son steps into it.